Welcome, Kyrin Hobson. How are you, beautiful?
Kenya, I'm just stoked to see you. I'll use my LA language. I'm stoked.
LA language. And we're going to get into your LA. Well, I listen, I do this with every guest. I read just a snapshot of their bio before we really get in this conversation. Now, audience, I know Karen personally. And so while we're going to enjoy listening to this quick bio, by no means is this everything about Karen because she's got some amazing, she's just an amazing woman. And you're not even going to hear like about her family life in this bio, which somehow we got to get to because how she does all this and have the family that she has is amazing. So Karen, I'm going to read this bio, all right, because I want people to be able to get a glimpse of what it is that you do as an artist. And Karen is a part of our Art Voices Matter series. And so occasionally we bring in artists who are over 40 so that we can hear this from an artist lens, because as an artist myself, I think there's a lot in our generation that gets forgotten. So all right, here we go. So Karen, this is your bio. Or abbreviated version. Karen Hobson is an interdisciplinary artist and museum professional. Her practice proposes counter-visualities to explore feminist histories of Black and multiracial women. In paintings, performance, and multimedia installations, and through the lens of motherhood as an unbroken through line of our survival, her work centers bodily movement, ecologies of care, the search for kinship, and the ways in which women aggregate, transfer, and utilize power. My God, that is a line. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. We're gonna keep going. Karen holds a BA, Bachelor of Arts, in Visual Art from UCLA, a Master's in Arts Administration and Museum Studies from NYU, New York University, and is a current MFA, which is a Master of Fine Arts candidate in Visual Art at the University of Chicago. Oh my goodness. Okay, Karen, how did it feel hearing me read that to you?
What an affirmation. I'm like, oh, what? How did that happen? And girl, I love your edit. I'm going to steal it.
Well, there's so much more. I mean, just reading that made me even, and I've read it a couple times. It's made me even like, oh my God, this girl, this woman, I've known you all these years, and I don't think I knew that I mean, your art, it's just a lot. So, okay, so we could go on and on about your art, but I'm glad it's an affirmation. And how so? How so is an affirmation for you?
Well, you know how it is when you're in your, daily muck. You know your purpose, but there's not words to it. There's
Mm,
not words. There's just your energy and the direction, and maybe somebody is pulling you. Your ancestors are pushing you, and you know
mm,
what it is. But to hear somebody else receive it and say it
mm.
is such a reward.
Oh
It's a
wow.
rich reward, especially when it's somebody that you respect.
Oh. Well, listen, I respect you beyond. The moment I first met you, you have those of you who are watching the video, and only our Patreon subscribers really see Karen, but Karen, you're a beautiful woman visually, but and not even but and your light, like when you speak, it is art. And I remember when I first met you in my home, you came over with a friend, and I was like, who is this woman with so much light? Like so much light, not just physically, but in how she speaks. And so I would love for you to share, why have you chosen visual art as your plea? Like, was it just you never thought of anything else ever, or something different?
Well, honestly, perhaps it's because I can't sing well. I really can't. But from a very young age, little kid, when words failed me, and I'm fairly decent with words, it had to go to images.
Mm,
And I think that there's a place in our really kind of word driven cycle of relations to
Mm,
interrupt and posit the creativity that comes from receiving images and processing them in our own ways.
mm,
And it wasn't something that was extremely highly valued the way I came up, but it is a constant. And it has been that way since I was a small little thing running around with a crayon.
And I mean, okay, so that's good. You're segueing me. You're segueing me into my next question because I was going to ask you what was life. I mean, we definitely are going to spend some time talking about life at this 40 plus because it's a different space of life. But in your 20s and yeah, 30s, but definitely those 20s, because I like 20s because that's when we're beginning our adulthood. What was life like for you as an artist, but then also just personally, maybe outside of being an artist?
Well, I love that question because I have three girls who are in their teens and 20s right now.
Mm,
And I look at them and I go, are they going through what I went through or not? And it was a time when I was a striver, clearly a striver.
mm,
But I might not have had the moorings that I have now
mm.
to know what the hell I was striving for. I was just going to do something. It was going to be something. I wanted, glory or, to make my mark. I credit a very small number of professors I had at university with helping me to establish visual systems of visualizing that were culture based and not so much based in what was presented in academic styles of teaching at the time.
Mhm.
And that formed who I was in terms of a sensibility. And I carried that with me through everything I did,
Mm,
parenting, writing, talking, and making art and making museum exhibitions too.
mm.
So I was turned on, but maybe only like you turn on the kettle. Maybe the kettle doesn't know exactly where it's going.
But isn't that the beauty of being 20 something? And I always want to share with 20 something years because they want to know. And it's like, no, it's actually better to be a little bit dumb and blind right now because the hunger, the zest, the energy, is so vibrant there because you don't really know. So,
You don't. And when you
yeah.
get older, maybe you look back and see what was formative, right? Watch,
Yeah.
I'm going to mess up your podcast right now because she messes up podcasts because she's a visual.
Oh,
Uh,
oh, and
Look,
see,
I
the
keep
people
this
who
in
are
my
just listening,
studio.
they don't get to see, so that's why they have to become
No, she doesn't. They
subscribers.
don't get to see.
Oh, look
But
at
join the Patreon because
you.
this is
Yes.
me at the age of the
Oh my
time that Kenya's asking
gosh.
about.
Those are your daughters.
I was super fly, okay? Had been to Paris. This is me outside the fountains at the Los Angeles Museum of Contemporary Art.
Oh, I love it. I love
And
it.
a photographer friend took that picture, and I was being very Parisian and very droll. But things don't change. There's like my paint smeared fingerprints on the old print, and so things don't really change. I
Ah.
was in it. I was in it
You
from that young
actually
age.
visually, those who didn't see, you really look the exact same, Karen. Your hair is different. I mean, that's like all. You have some lipstick on right now. I mean, it's really. I love it. I love it. So that was more you as the artist, you as the woman. Who was that woman, that maybe new mom, new wife? What was life like for that 20
Oh,
something or 30
oh, so
something?
Yes, I was an old mother.
So, okay, 30 something. Let's move to the 30s.
Yes, let's progress to the 30s. There were many children running around, and I was, now in hindsight, I could say I was very savvy because
Mm,
I was in close contact with my limitations. And I had my priorities of being a really hands on mother.
mm,
I did not have family around me, and
mm,
it was all on me.
mm.
And I knew that I couldn't accomplish the child rearing extravaganza
Because that's what
that
it
was to
is.
happen and balance a job.
Mm,
I poured myself into my children, and it was thrilling and painful at the same time.
mm, mhm.
Now that I see them, becoming young adults, zero regrets.
Yeah, yeah. You have amazing children. And I know that we all say that to our friends. Okay. I know that. I know that. But I've had the opportunity to work with one of your children, with your oldest daughter, and just to watch them be such individuals. I think that's what I've admire so much is watching your children be themselves. And I don't know all your I'm not sitting down, having dinner with your kids every day, but every encounter I've ever had with them, they are themselves. Like, I just feel like this whoever she is who she is. And I think that can be hard with children, right? Because like, well, I kind of want to be like my older sibling, or I don't quite fit in the family, so I'm just kind of mute. No, I've always felt like your children, they have different personalities. Some may be quieter than the others or what have you, but when their voice does come out, and I see some of your kids. Well, I've seen your youngest daughter because she goes to the same high school as my kids. And so I'll see her at games and stuff. She doesn't know me, it's like, who's that woman? I don't know her, but
Really?
I've seen
She's
her.
she's on the Viking television channel now. So
Oh,
I
so
asked her to
see.
come in here and set up my shop, and she said no.
So I love it. I love it. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears and we're going to go to that 40 plus self.
Hmm.
And and you mentioned about having to put everything kind of into your family and really
Hmm.
prioritize that. So what was it that made you shift gears and say, wait a minute, that artist, and I'm assuming if it wasn't after 40 that happened, then you can clarify that for me. But when was it and how was it that it was like, I have to shift gears and step back into this artist that I know for myself?
Yeah. Well, I can let anyone know that it wasn't a tipping point. It was a gathering storm.
Mm,
I knew that this was where I needed to be. I was like, oh, girl, you better take care of yourself. And I know we'll get to that later,
mhm,
um, because you have to have an illustrious later life.
mm.
You made a decision, and it's like that. There's an Aesop's fable about a dog that has a bone and it looks at the reflection in the water and it doesn't know that it's itself and it like drops the bone to get the
Oh,
bigger bone.
yes,
It's
yeah.
that kind of dynamic. I needed both bones, you know?
Mm, mhm,
I
mhm,
needed to always see this reflection that I would have my work and that it would be an affirmation for myself, for my children, for my elders who didn't maybe get a chance to do what they were cut out to do.
mhm,
Okay.
mhm,
And so it was a gathering storm. There was no tipping point where I was like, I've had enough. I'm going to go and turn my back on one thing to do the other. It's more like I couldn't do the thing I was destined to do without the steps and the carrying of the whole motherhood thing. And the time that it took was the time that it took.
mm. I love that. And you just said that so you just said that so beautifully and poetically. See, I told y'all her words are like light. Because when you did that, when you were talking about the fable or the whatever it is, and the dog looking in the and seeing themselves with a bone and not really even recognizing like that. It's that moment, like you say, that you see, and it's like, wait a minute, like I gotta, you don't even really see yourself until you see yourself, and then when you see yourself, it's like, okay, I gotta really, gather and do so. So, okay, so let's talk about this illustrious taking care of self and self care, because what we want to explore in this podcast is we hear these amazing stories, but how are people doing it and taking care of themselves? So, when you hear the word self care, because it's becoming very buzzy, very trendy right now, ever since COVID, there's a myriad of self care. I'm not hating on that because I think it's better to be in some space of that than not at all. But when you hear self care, what does that mean to you?
I have such a different read on it, and I'm glad you teed
Mm,
it up that way because I see myself as a compound person. I am my ancestors, and I am my children, and I am me,
mm,
and I do what I can from here to affirm them and prepare them, right?
yes.
So my self care is amplified in this way. It's maybe less about going to get a massage, though I will indulge whenever I can, and more about taking care of my expressive presence as a model for my children and as a sounder for people
Mm,
who came before me, came around me, came through me, who didn't have the representation. So my self care is multidimensional through time, and my work is my self care.
mm,
And
mm.
I might show up one day looking fabulous. I might show up another day looking ashy as hell, but I still show up, and it's about what's in here.
You said show up as ashy. Here we are thinking you're going to say she says ashy. I love it. I love
Well,
it.
they
But you
say
show
ash is
up.
like it's Richard Pryor's like ash is the only, like black national resource. We got to do something with
Right.
it.
We got to do something with the ash. That's hilarious. But anyway, I don't want to take it away from that, because that the fact that you said your work is your self care. Now I'm not going to be able to leave you there. How? How so? How?
Because we all need flights of fancy. We need imagination. We need to lie down on the grass and stare up at the clouds and see what they are
Mm,
offering to us. And for me, I just take it all the way to the end. I'm like,
mm,
damn, my ancestors might have seen that cloud and felt um, that there was a resolution on the horizon for what they were going through. They might have seen a flower or a butterfly and inhaled undeniable beauty that sustained them.
mm,
Um, so yeah, maybe nature and the dynamics between the human world that we call it and the animal world. That's my self care.
mm,
I
mm,
identify a lot with the natural world, specifically with animals. So spending time with animals would be part of my self care. Um,
mm.
yeah, it sounds like my self care is not bodily at all, but my
Right.
body does have to carry me and sustain me. So,
Right.
I will try to not have too much salt or processed food. How's that?
But I think, I mean, I so appreciate you saying that, because, right, I think we do so often characterize self care in this very embodied space, right? Which, not to say that
Almost an entitled space, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that's
does
fussy.
that self care, does that reach? So one of the things I ask, or I when I'm working with people and helping people, is so that they can see self care in this more holistic way, and not just food and movement, or massages or facials. I'll say, okay, what's the self care you're doing for soul? Like what
Hmm.
are you doing to take care of soul and spirit? So for you, is that all of those things? I mean, I'm going to assume, but nature, all of that is also feeding and self-caring for soul and mind.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
My soul is not calm
Mm,
unless there's a pragmatic um, activism or creative solution finding going down.
mm,
It's, it's just probably not.
yeah, yeah. And does that feel, because I want to see how I can phrase this without like putting words in your mouth, but does that feel light? Does that feel heavy to do? Does that feel arduous? Or it's like, no, it's with flow.
It's purposeful. It's flow in the sense of, you find your flow and that is a truth. But, there are missteps all the time. I will venture into areas where I'm overburdened,
Mhm.
uh, perhaps super serious, or I let my joy get beaten asunder because I'm trying to fully feel things that were not joyous for others, are not joyous for others, or a threat to others. Um, and as an artist, you have to allow that space to fully feel
Mm, absolutely.
these dynamics, or you won't have work.
Yes.
So,
And you appear to handle it with such grace, because I think that's kind of what can be one of the most challenging things for artists, is to experience life from this, very tangible space, at the same time be productive, at the same time be functional, at the same time, still have relationships. It can be really challenging, which is why I, wanted to do the Our Voices Matter, to so that people can have a bigger appreciation for how embodied it really is, how encompassing it's into the fact that you said it's your self-care. And I think sometimes people don't necessarily see artists, which is why, I'm like, treat artists with just a lot of care, and because there's a lot that we're negotiating while doing the very thing that feeds us, not just literally in terms of, our food, our money and stuff, but that feeds our souls. So,
right. It's
ah,
just like artists are a key that turns on an engine for ourselves and also for people who are not making or creating, but can access that really special, really exalted level of being
mhm,
that shows them a way to make associations
mm,
and tap into, yeah, they're a creative soul out there walking around in a life that is valid, that is worth connecting with. So,
right.
very necessary.
Very necessary, super necessary. So when your kids, people out here listening, say, I want to be an artist, don't poo poo that mess, because you're poo pooing so many, you're poo pooing more than the career. There's a lot that's happening when a person exclaims or proclaims that they want to do their art. And so I think you just said that. Well, I just have a couple more questions for you. Now that you're in this stage of life, and I don't make our guests say their age. If you'd like to, you can. If you don't, we just say over 40, after 40. But at
I
this
need a
stage,
promotion to over 50. I want the
so
promotion.
she's over
I
50.
earned
You're willing
this.
to, yes, yes. But that's why I asked. That's why I say, because I don't want to. All right. So, what are you looking most forward to at this stage of life? Or have you already found it and but is there something you're still looking forward to at this stage?
No, I'm in it.
Mm,
Um, yeah, looking forward to. I'm in it. Uh,
mm,
I have opportunities that I didn't have when I was in my 30s and 40s, and self knowledge that is required to make the most of those opportunities. So I'm doing that.
Mhm.
every day. I have assets that I didn't have, a long standing commitment to my own family that I spawned.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, that's an asset. That's the wind at my back. It's inspiration for my work. My existence inside of a family fold and a family history is the subject of my work. I'm very much just enthralled of those gifts, and I'm a pragmatist. I want to put the gifts to work for others.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I would say that of course I look forward to the daily delights, maybe being able to travel with folks or something, wonderful to provide for my family or for my own learning and development. But that's a constant. I would say that I'm in it.
Yeah. Well, drop the mic. No, and I'm saying drop the mic because I think it's rare that people can say seriously that they're in the very things that they've looked forward to. You know what I mean? That's a blessing, and I think the fact that you've made, the references that you've made, and obviously the work that you do to convey ancestry and to continue the story and the generational, break certain generational things while recreating and creating new things. Yeah, that's what more do you have to, you know what I mean? I mean, there's more, I guess you could, but I think that was exquisite. All right, so what advice would you give your younger self? That think it back to that 20-something-year-old artist. Is there any advice, knowing what you know now at the stage of life, is there anything that you would have said to that 20-year-old Kyrin artist?
It would have been to pay attention, pay attention to, because pay attention to the right thing, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we're all falling into this of caring and paying attention to what folks think of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a drain on your resources. Um, and I would say maybe care a little bit more about your stock. Take self inventory and take inventory of where you came from, and then let that take on a huge outsized proportion of what you care about, and let it choke and drown out the concerns that you had about what so and so, who's not even in your life anymore, might have thought of you in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
because they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I didn't have that coming into this situation, but it was definitely brought home and made clear for me.
Yeah, I think that 20, we just like, no, the other people, what they say matters so much. And
Doesn't matter.
yeah, no, not so much, not so much. Well, this has been amazing. The last question I have is quite just silly and fun, and it's really only because we have a Spotify playlist we're putting together. The
Oh my God.
playlist, I know, it's not. Let's see. By the time this airs, it should be launched because we're building it at the time of this recording. So by the time people's ears are on this podcast, they should be able to go to Spotify and finding your voice after 40 playlist. But what's your theme song? Now, this don't think too hard about this. This can change every week, right? Depending on what's going on in our lives. But what is your
Okay.
theme song?
Okay. I have a theme song that I have two theme songs. So
Okay,
you just have
awesome.
to roll with it.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
at my funeral, when they're
Oh,
carrying my ashes down, or just when I'm here in my home, there's a song called like it's Love That Makes a Woman by Phoebe Snow. It is a throwback that my mama used to listen
oh,
to.
yeah.
So fun.
I love it. I
Good
love
theme
it.
song for me. But when I hit that door, okay, move, get out the way, get out the way. Oh, I used to listen to that with my girls in the car on the way to preschool. So it's me and Ludacris when we're out of these four walls.
This
We
is
got to move it.
perfect. This is why I asked this question because this tells so much I'm really into theme songs because it tells so much about a person's personality that they're not going to say.
Musician.
Right. That they're not going to say. But you can figure out things real nice when people tell you what songs motivate them and encourage them. So the fact that
Those are
ludicrous
mine
is what
too.
just came out of your mouth, I love that. I love everything about that. And now I got to go listen to that song because I'm like, that's right. And I'm now going to always think about you when I hear that song. So that's a really
Think about
wonderful
my
thing.
toddlers, my girls, because that was our song.
That's hilarious. Well, this has been awesome. I want people, we're going to include in the show notes how people can learn even more about you, can contact you. But just so that we're, since we're all tuning in, either walking while we're hearing this, driving while we're hearing this, whatever, how can you share social media, anything that they can follow, as well as a website?
Yes, I will share my social media handle, which links to my website. My website is a workshop right now because I am a graduate student.
Yeah.
Um, and that's all good and fun, but it's just at Kyrin Hobson, KYRINHOBSON for Instagram, and Twitter is KYRINLIVESART,
Mm,
Kyrin Lives Art. Um, and
mm,
a thing that I would have told my 20-year-old self that I didn't have to is that
mhm,
when social media makes you feel less than, turn it off.
mm, absolutely.
Um, so I'm not always the most posty, but I look.
She looks, as I said, but you can also this way, and we'll put this in the show notes, particularly the link to make sure they can see your graduate student site so that they can link
Yeah.
into that.
I
But
have no
you're,
problem letting people into my workshop site. It's
yeah,
cool. I will definitely make sure it gets linked.
yeah, no, and I didn't, say this, but of course I don't think I'm terribly biased, but Karen's work is the truth. Like it is. I'm always in awe that I actually know you because, and this happens with my friends that are artists. I'm like, do I really know you? Like you are on another level. Your art is impeccable. It's exquisite, and it's everything that you said. When you look at your pieces, it's like, is this a? It's like, okay, I know it's not a photograph. I know it's a painting. I know, but it's got so much life in it, and it's just, I love your work. So I really want people to make sure they go to your IG, to your workshop site, so you can really look at her work. And if you're in the Chicago area, you need to like, is there anywhere that people can go right now where they can physically see any of your work up somewhere in the
Well, the
Chicagoland
next show
area?
I have is in New York.
Okay.
And as a graduate student, they kind of really highly discourage you showing work until the
Mm,
very end. But there will be
gotcha.
a huge and massive push in May.
Okay. 2023. 2023.
Yes,
All right. All right.
when all of this is over.
So you graduate
So
May. I love
graduating
it.
in May,
I
and then
can't
there's going to be
believe
stuff
that, Karen.
everywhere.
I mean, I remember when you were applying for the MFA. This is ridiculous. Like, this is crazy.
You got to find your way. You do it. Artists see each other, and that is why I showed up for this dear, delightful friend, Kenya.
Well, I love you immensely and I appreciate you. And I hope everyone has enjoyed hearing like I said, your expression of light when you speak and go further and look into your work because it's really beautiful work. So that is all we're doing for the regular podcast. As you guys know, we do bonus content, and I'm going to ask Karen a couple more questions, some advice she would give others, but she ain't going to say that right here yet. We're going to save that for the bonus. And as well as another fun question. So if you want to hear all of that from Karen, then make sure you go to our Finding Your Voice Patreon, which is patreon.com/finding your voice. And just subscribe, $5. That's it. And you get all this stuff every week from our guests. So, all right. That is all that we have. You guys have a nice day.
Thank you for all of this.
You're welcome. You're welcome. stay tuned because we're going to continue with our bonus. Okay, we are in our bonus, just like that. It was like magic, right? So this is my question for you, Kyrin, in our bonus content. Um, to the woman, or maybe the man, but I want to say to the woman who has the kids, who has the family, who's doing all of these things, and who was once really active in her art, but no longer. What advice would you give to help that woman find her voice, get back in that flow?
My advice would be some advice that I got from a very best friend of mine who departed this world. It will be 4 years, September 11th. One of my very closest friends always told me that the life I was making, whatever the day-to-day rigmarole was still my practice. And that sustained me through so much, that I knew I had a practice that it might have seemed invisible to others, but it was mine. My ways of making a household, my ways of positioning visual cues for anyone who came into my household, through my art, through photographs, foodways, affirmations of what was going down under our roof. That was my practice. And it is serving me well now. So my advice to somebody who feels that erasure that comes from what society wants and conspires to do, to women who are doing what they need to do to make a way for themselves, their children in particular. You know, as Black women, let me tell you, we might not have had the option. And I know so many of us who, in my little generation, were like, oh my God, there's the option. I am taking it. I'm going to be all in with my family, my home, and my children. Who do you think we were living for? It was not just us.
Right.
And so claiming it as your practice, regardless of whether that's visible to others, well, that was something that was really helpful to me. I'm not saying it was always comfortable.
That right there, that discomfort, that getting uncomfortable, but still showing up is, I think, a really critical part of going through the process of finding your voice. Because I think people are waiting to feel good or waiting for it to feel easy.
Yeah.
And then they'll get really into it. And it's like, actually, it's just the opposite, in fact.
Yep. There were times when it didn't look good either.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my last question for you, and then we're going to let you go and enjoy your evening. What is something that you wish I would have asked you that you want people to know about you?
Oh, about me?
About you.
Yeah, where I'm from.
Yeah.
Where
See,
I'm
we kind
from
of we
is
did.
an interesting one because we, right in the here and now, so many of us are almost like rootless plants, like those air plants that are there. They're beautiful and they're reaching toward the sun, but the roots are not long. They might have been displaced or far from family or whatever. And I'm very interested in this kind of way of proclaiming a psychic space that says that as a woman moving in this world, I can include what went before me and carry what might come with me or after me in my own kind of sphere of influence. And that does have a lot to do with your location. I have moved all around the United States and raised my children far from family. And that was a first almost. And it was very challenging, and maybe part of why I was like I have to, give them priority because no one else has my back.
Yeah.
So I'm a New Orleanian. I'm from the South. That's where my roots are on both sides. But I grew up in LA mostly.
Mm,
And then I moved all over the country, New York, DC, Indiana, Minneapolis, and finally ended up here in Chicago. And a lot of us kind of rootless wanderers, I think we should reframe
mm,
this belonging into
mm,
something that is more of a sphere of power that we carry with us,
mhm,
um,
mhm.
that kind of draws its energy from all of the physical places that are in the before of how we got to
Yeah,
where we are.
I love that. And I don't know how I didn't ask about your New Orleans. So I'm glad that you chose that. Because it's funny, my son is now in New Orleans for college. Yes,
He's
he
at
goes.
Dillard?
No, he's at
Where,
Xavier. He's at
Xavier.
Xavier.
Oh my
Yeah, yeah,
God.
he is. He is. And so I'm there now. Then often, and I'm always, New Orleans has always been a really special. It's just a special place. But the more now that I'm, you know, helping him. I mean, he's a sophomore now, so he feels like he knows it all. But just getting adjusted to different environments and so forth. The more that I'm learning more about New Orleans, and the more that I appreciate all those who are from, who live, who raised there, who never leave there. Like there's just a whole nother energy and appreciation I know that I have now having a part of my blood living there, and
Yeah.
experiencing there. So even though it's college, so there's a protection to a certain degree, but he's a young man exploring all the things. So it's yeah.
Yeah.
So now I appreciate that even more hearing, and I already knew that about you, but it's like yeah. So
Yeah.
well, that is all I have. I just can't thank you enough. And I hope that our audience, those who are watching this in the Patreon and those who, heard the earlier part. I mean, I think this is yay. I'm just so glad. Because you again, you radiate so much. So just thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for being a pro and able to pull everything out of a conversation. I don't know how you do it, but you really do. And I want to wish you every good luck in your endeavors with this.
Oh, thank you so much, beautiful. No, I love this. This is like me, I get to be like Barbara Walters. I mean, I grew up watching like Barbara Walters. I'm like, I want somebody to ask some questions that I have. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you can and you should. You have your place to do that.
Ah,
That's the best. So I will look forward with great interest to the rest.
yes.
Um, and what an honor. Thank you so much. And we will
You're
connect on the
welcome.
flip side.
We
Okay?
will. We will. I'm going to end the broadcast, but stay right there. So I'm just going to push a button to end. And to the Patreon people, thanks for watching. And if you have questions, just leave a message here in the Patreon site, and we'll pass them over to Kyrin in case she can give some insight. All right. Bye, guys.